one of the things that we find really interesting when we talk to companies is they all want to innovate. They're just not actually sure where to innovate. In fact, the kind of really interesting problem that a guy called Roberto Verganti talks about is the fact that there's so much innovation everywhere that it's really hard to work out where to start. Innovation, 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 innovation. If you go and look at most of the software that you've got, it's just like got this galloping featureitis thing that adds on and adds on and adds on features. So we've thought about this really deeply for a long period of time, and I want to tell you where we think that you might want to consider innovating. Why don't you consider innovating in the relationship with your customers? Now, what I mean by that is, why don't you consider innovating about how to get your customers to fall in love with you? Now, think about it. If you have customers that love you, do you think that you're going to be a profitable business? I reckon absolutely. I don't know any business that has that's properly managed, that has customers who love it, that goes out of business or doesn't succeed or doesn't grow or any of those things. But what's interesting is we don't start by thinking that we need to love our customers. We think by starting, okay, we need to make profit, right? We need to make profit. And as soon as you make profit, what you're doing is you're trying to innovate around your product. What you should be trying to do is innovate around the relationship. And I'm going to propose something incredibly controversial to you right now, especially if you're a hard-bitten business type. If you want to have a deeper relationship with your customers, you need to love them. And if you want to love them, you need to start to romance them. It's terrifying, isn't it? The concept of romance. That doesn't make sense at all. Okay, so as a guy who's been trained in physics, right, which is a kind of learned autism when you think about it, okay, as my first degree, I actually had to try and unpack from my learned autism what it means to be in love with someone, or at least to be romantic with them. Okay, so here are the three components that you need to understand if you want to have romance with someone. Are you ready for this? The three components of romance for reluctant Romeos and jaded Juliets are unexpected, expensive, and pointless. If you do anything that's unexpected, expensive, and pointless, that will be romantic. Now, I'm assuming at this point that if you think that I'm an idiot, you will stop. And that's okay. But if you'd like to understand how your customers can fall in love with you, just keep watching, because I'll try and unpack those components for you. So let's start with not a business. Let's start with something that we're more familiar with when it comes to romance. Let's start with a relationship. If you've been in a long-term relationship with someone, at some point you've had the conversation, and the conversation is really difficult. And it goes something like this. The more romantic partner says something like, "You're not the same. You've changed. You used to be so romantic, and now you're not." And I've had this conversation, and unfortunately in this conversation, guess what? As the learned autism physicist, I have been the less romantic partner. And I don't want to be like that, but I have been like that. And my response at first was probably a pretty good response. I said, "Do you know what? You're right." I took responsibility and I said, "I'm sorry. We've been busy. There's been the kids. We've been trying to do things with the businesses, doing all this sort of stuff. I'm sorry, you're right." And that bit, right, that bit was probably okay. But the next bit I got totally wrong. I totally blew it. And I'm sure that when you've tried to be romantic with your partner, and more importantly, I'm sure that when you've tried to make a connection with people in your business, you've got to this moment where everything could change and you've blown it. Okay? In the eye of the storm, in all of the crashing, there's suddenly this moment of calm. There's a chance for everything to change, and you get it wrong. Here's the next thing I said that was wrong. I said, "What would you like me to do about it?" If I've got to tell you, it's not romantic. Now, have you ever had a conversation like this where the reaction of trying to help and trying to do the right thing has completely and utterly got the wrong result? But in this discomfort is the seed of what's perfect. The first element of romance is to do something unexpected, is to do something surprising. That's why Valentine's Day doesn't work. On Valentine's Day, the best thing that can happen is you don't get in trouble because you do the stuff, right? It's after Valentine's Day when you do something that you don't need to do that's surprising, that makes an impact. The second thing is, what should you do if you want to do something romantic? Well, this is where the other two clues come in. Imagine that you decide that you're going to buy your partner some flowers. Okay. Now, think about this. I don't mean buy some flowers when it's expected. I don't mean buy some flowers because you're apologizing for something. I don't mean buy some flowers because you're going to a funeral and somebody died. So let's assume you haven't done anything wrong and you're not in trouble. You just want to surprise your partner with some flowers. You can imagine there's a couple of options to do that. And in our business, we like to think about 3 options. So let's think of the 3 most obvious options about how you could buy flowers for your partner. You could order them online and have them delivered by a stranger. This is maybe an expensive cost, maybe it's not an expensive cost, but it's the most expedient for you to do. You just go online, give your credit card, make it happen, it's done. Okay. The second thing that you could do, which requires a little bit more investment, is you could stop on the way home, you could meet a florist, and you could co-create a bouquet of flowers for your partner. And in co-creating the bouquet partners for your flower, you could make sure that you pick the flowers and the colors of the flowers that they like. Okay. Now, this is a bit more invested. It might not cost any more than the online thing. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But more importantly, from a time point of view and from an emotion point of view, you've got to be more invested. But get this, all right? Wouldn't the most romantic option you could be if you decided to give your partners flowers would be to drive to somewhere where there are wildflowers, hand pick the wildflowers yourself, and turn up just a little bit sheepishly with them. Darling, I picked these for you. Now, if you're anything like me, as a physicist, you're not trained to arrange flowers. You can't do it as beautifully as the system that the online company's done. You certainly can't do it as good as a professional florist. But which do you think is going to get the cut through in your relationship? The ugliest, cheapest flowers that you picked yourself for free and handed out with your heart in your sleeve, risking being rejected, or the professional ones that you paid for? And coincidentally, which ones actually cost the least in terms of money terms? When we talk about expensive, we mean expensive in terms of time, in terms of emotion, in terms of risk, not necessarily in terms of money, in terms of situation, in terms of sensation. You have to invest something in it yourself. And this is the second requirement of romance. If you're a reluctant Romeo or a jaded Juliet, the requirement is that not only do you have to do something that's unexpected and surprising, you have to do something where you've actually invested yourself. And I know what you're thinking. What if it doesn't work? So I've had friends of mine that have said, do you know what? We did your thing, Robert. We did unexpected, expensive and pointless, right? And then they didn't put out. We didn't get what we wanted. If it's in business, they didn't buy. If it's in a relationship, they weren't prepared to put out, right? And I have to tell you that if you start with that attitude, you've already shot yourself in the foot before you've even started, because it's not pointless, is it? You're not doing it because you care. You're not doing it transformationally. You're trying to do it transactionally. And every business that I see that loses sight of their mission, that loses sight of caring their customers and starts to count transactions, immediately it does that, it starts the road to decline. It starts the road to death. So what I want to inspire you to do is to think about the alternative, okay? Start doing stuff with your customers just to show you care about them, and watch what happens to your business. Watch how it grows, because your customers in love act crazy. And wouldn't you love to have customers that act crazy in your business? Now, if you're not really sure how to do this, and you're worried about the cost of doing this, and you're not even sure how to care about how to do this, hey, give us a call. It's what we love to do. We're on a mission to help the good guys win. And if you're a good guy, that means you want to care about your customers. And if you're not sure how to do it, hey, we're happy to come and help.